Today, our focus was working our hands in the run game, and more specifically, was it's not loading your hands in the run game. Where you see the offensive linemen throw their hands back towards their hip before they strike in the run game. The classical coaching point is, draw your hands back to your holsters before you shoot your pistol. So the positives to it is it can create a larger, more powerful punch, but that comes at a cost. The longer the hands travel, the longer it takes to establish a connection, and the more your chest is exposed. Loading your hands in the run game for the purpose of generating more force is like what we see in combat sports with the overhand right, where they really pull the hand down by the hip and loop around over the top, and they can generate a ton of force and it can be devastating. But they are vulnerable both during the windup and the position they wind up in after they punch, whether they land or not. And so it's really predicated on them setting it up well. So you need to recognize the cost as an offensive lineman. Your goal of throwing a harder punch in the run game can leave you exposed, and someone more skilled or someone quicker or someone more efficient is going to take advantage of it, like we saw here with this guy getting knocked out by the jab while trying to throw this overhand right. So for offensive line play in the run game, it's not just about producing the biggest strike. It's about being in a position where you're both defensive and offensive. So you're protecting your chest from a bad connection with the defender while being in a position to be offensive and establish a strong connection. So instead of thinking of loading your hands and throwing these big punches, think of being efficient with your setup, your strike, and your position. So here's the first progression to today's drills. Remember, the focus is hands. So in this one, you basically have two people with the same objective. That is to take your first two steps of your inside zone footwork and wind up with your hands inside. So the player that winds up with their hands inside wins. The person outside, they lose. And as you'll see, as you'll progress and players are not loading their hands anymore and they're actually shooting them with their steps, you're going to wind up with a lot of ties where it's basically 50-50. You have one hand in and one hand out. That's fine. You just restart from there. So from there, we progressed to basically a sumo drill, but we're just trying to drive each other forward or back. So now it really is two offensive players. And this is after we've established, hey, guys are not loading their hands. They're shooting with their steps. So from here, you're going to wind up where your hands wind up. But I want you to replace and refit and not accept bad positions. Because a lot of times, in offensive line play, like you wind up with your hands bad, you'll just kind of hope the play ends the way it ends. And you don't really fight to reestablish a good position, or in this case, a good connection with your hands. So if you wind up in a 50-50 position, fight to get 100% inside. Or if you wind up completely outside, fight to get your hands back inside.